from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mark Auerbach, and you're listening to the Westfield News Show here on 89.5 FM WSKB. It is right now about 34 degrees. It's going up to a high of 59 today, and some sun tomorrow. Will
enjoy it while it lasts.
Enjoy it while it lasts, because there'll be a 100% chance of yucky weather tomorrow. If you're looking for news and information this morning on what's going on in Westfield, Southwick, Granville, and other communities, you can go to the Westfield News website at thewestfieldnews.com and learn about tonight's council meetings, school committee meetings, sports, entertainment, and weather. Joining me today in the studio is actually online from Springfield is Kathy Tobin from Bay State Health. Kathy Tobin and I go way back. We both arrived in the greater Springfield area approximately the same time. She started work at Channel 40 as a reporter, and I was starting my first job as a public relations person at the Springfield Symphony, and we got to work together on stories, and we've known each other ever since. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Well, I think there's no way for me to start off doing a Westfield News Show for a month than to have somebody on the air who I know will not get shy and I know can talk about a million and one things. So I'm really glad you're here.
It's my pleasure. It's lovely to be back together again, and of course still working in our community to bring everyone great news about things that are happening. Well,
first of all, a lot of people don't know some basics about Bay State Health and Bay State Medical Center, and you're affiliated with the foundation, and the foundation's job is to raise money, correct?
It is. So Bay State Health Foundation, we're the philanthropic arm for the medical system. So it is our job to raise money for any place in the health system that needs additional funds, and in this day and age, that's just about everywhere. As you can imagine, medical coverage and rates don't cover the cost of really providing the kind of care we all want and expect. And so we try to make up that difference from what is the operational budget to provide either something new and high-tech earlier than we might otherwise be able to purchase it, or perhaps surround patients in some of the extra little niceties that make the experience that much better.
For example, people say that Bay State, in terms of being a medical facility, is state of the art. Do you have to go out and raise the money to get the new equipment, or does insurance pick up the cost of that when somebody comes in for surgery or a medical procedure?
Well, as you know from the many headlines, funding health care is a complex formula. But what most people may not realize is that Bay State, Medical Center and our affiliate hospitals are nonprofit. And what that means is that we have to operate so that any margin of profit that we do make and we're able to squeeze out of what is a very tight financial picture, we reinvest back in the health system. And the reality is that just to keep up with things that must be replaced each year, we need a 3% margin. And in this day and age, that's very hard to do. Usually it's about half of that. So that leaves a gap in what we need to do just to keep current. We, of course, have built as a health system a reputation, and we've earned it the hard way, of being ahead and being as high-tech as we can be. And that's what's so important for people in our community, that they know they can stay close to home and get the newest and best care possible right here without having to go far from family and friends. It's hard enough when you're ill, but having to add travel and unfamiliarity to that just complicates the scenario even more.
Now, for years before you came to Bay State to become a fundraiser and do an event, do all kinds of events, you were a reporter covering health issues. What surprised you when you finally got to Bay State and you were in the fundraising mode? Was there something about the hospital and the organization that surprised you, that you were not aware of, that sets Bay State apart maybe from some of the other facilities that you reported on?
Well, I'm very lucky in my career because I feel like I've really come full circle at this point. I did make sort of my name locally in reporting as a health reporter because it was something people wanted and needed more information about. And finding someone who could communicate that to them, I think, was well received in the community. I don't think that has changed very much. I think, health is still key to people's lives. And I guess what I am a bit surprised about is that, I grew up in a family where my mother was a nurse, and we valued health care very much. And I think sometimes we take for granted, we've watched Bay State Health grow, and we know that it's there when we need it, but we forget what a jewel it really is to have right in our community, how important. I always advise people not to find out what's available to them when they're in a crisis. It's good to know in advance and be familiar with it. We don't want the emergency department to be the front door to your experience. We want to promote good health and wellness, and there's so much more that can be done today than even back when I was, in the hospital almost on a daily basis covering health issues, that I just think there's so much more available in our community that I would love people to know more about it and know how they can help their families stay well and in front of some of those tragic health issues.
Well, if somebody were somebody had a family member that were dealing with a potential hospital visit or a potential series of them, how can they get involved and learn from Bay State before they do walk in the ER doors?
Well, we have an initiative that we call Compassionate Connections, and we're working very hard to try to improve the patient experience wherever we're able to. And I think that to the person, if you think about it when you go for healthcare, what you remember the people who took care of you and how they interacted. We have a tremendous team, over 12,000 employees who work really hard every day to engage with their patients and make them feel comfortable. We had a story just the other day where a wonderful nurse was able to, there was a woman who was nervous about her surgical procedure, and her place of relaxation was thinking about the beach and lighthouses, and she loves lighthouses. And this nurse took paper cups and medical tape and any other popsicle stick she could find around and created a lighthouse, if you will, to put in this patient's room to help her focus on her place of peace. So I think those are the kinds of examples of how we try to lower the stress, make people familiar with our system. We, of course, provide tours. We help young parents learn about our maternity and delivery before they even step in the hospital to have their baby. We do have those kinds of incentives. So really, all you need to do is ask, and I'm sure people will be able to find the support that they need in our system.
And Bay State is more than just Bay State in Springfield. It's Franklin Medical Center and the other hospitals. It's now probably one of the largest employers in Massachusetts. Is that correct?
We're the largest in certainly in our region, yes.
And so I see in my dealings with Bay State, not as a patient, being a patient necessarily, but as somebody in the community, that Bay State has really been a good player in terms of sponsoring events in the community because it's your employee base.
Well, we're very committed to the community. We have to be because our 12,000 employees have families who we need to not only take care of their health but their well-being. And we are an integral part. If you think about it, health really is at the center of our lives. And again, I think that as we've advanced in healthcare, we realize that we have to take care of the whole person. We're involved in things like community gardening, and we support initiatives that try to help our community keep healthy. It's too expensive to take care of people when they're sick. The idea is to, again, keep families healthy. And some of those issues really do connect the dots in my career, because if you think about housing and homelessness and hunger, all of those things play a factor. And so, I'm sorry, I have 2 doggies in my house. Sorry, getting a little loud when they see me.
A very special guest has joined us this morning.
Yes, but there are truly needs in the community, and Bay State tries to answer those. If you have someone come in and they're hungry, that's as big a health determinant as perhaps the fracture to their wrist, because that's talking about taking care of the whole being. So we are trying to look at initiatives and ways that we can connect with other community partners who are doing that great work in the community and make it one very comprehensive system for our patients.
Now, working at the foundation, you are responsible, and you have a team of people, to raise money to support a variety of programs and services. Because Bay State is a not-for-profit organization, what are the prime needs that you're out there fundraising for? Is there a list of priorities, or is it just raising for everything under the sun?
Well, because the system is large and there is need everywhere, I say that I have the best job in the world because there's a tremendous amount of variety. So whether it's pediatrics or geriatrics that you're interested in, I have somewhere that needs you and needs your money to help us. And but we do, obviously we have to prioritize. So we have a team, again, that determines what our strategic priorities need to be, where the need is the most. That said, sometimes overnight, something can develop that requires something very quickly. And so what we ask people is to think about that, that we need ongoing support so that when that need happens, we can answer it right away. We have a lot of wonderful events through the year, and, we're very fortunate at Bay State because for years we didn't do a lot of fundraising, but we put on great events to raise awareness and support particular causes. So our legacy are things like the Children's Miracle Network for our Children's Hospital, the only comprehensive pediatric hospital in the region. And then we have things like Rays of Hope, which, I was with Lisa Giugio when she began that event, which is now going to be celebrating its 25th year this year.
Wow, that's in the fall, though, correct?
That's in the fall, yes.
Right. Now, but the one coming up is the Children's Miracle Network. Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about it, and folks can take notes so that next week when it starts, you can call in and make a pledge.
Oh, thank you. We would love our listeners to do that. So the Children's Miracle Network supports obviously our pediatric care, and that can be everything from PD cancer to a premature baby to maybe a teenager who has, heaven forbid, a skiing accident or something like that. There's lots of ways that we interact with our youngest patients. But the Radiothon takes place on Tuesday, March 6th through Wednesday, March 7th on 94.7 WMAS. They have been our partners since 2002. We are part of a national network of children's hospitals. So from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can tune in and you can listen to the real patients, the families, the parents and siblings, and all those people who have walked the health journey with children and experience the loving care that they receive at Bay State Children's Hospital. So we hope people will call in. 794-1111 is the number to call in, or you can text in a pledge if you want, and that is WMAS Kids 51555. So any way that you want to give, we'll certainly take it, and we hope that people will be generous in supporting what is a real need, because pediatric hospitals do not exist without philanthropic support.
Can people go online and make a donation those days?
They can also make a donation online through our website, helpmakemiracles.org/event/WMAS.
And if people are listening this morning and are just interested in learning about these various events, where at the Bay State Health website would somebody go to kind of get a recap?
So if they go to our Bay State website and they, at the top, there's a button that says make a donation. If you click that, it will bring you to the foundation webpage, and we have a whole listing of all our events that are happening. We have lots of signature events throughout our engagement area. So right near where you are, of course, today, Bay State Noble Hospital, a jewel in the Westfield community, is also one of the hospitals that we support, and we have some wonderful events coming up specific to the Westfield community.
Right, and the Noble Ball comes up, and that, again, that's a fall event.
It It is, but believe me, the planning is well underway.
I'm sure. Going back to the phone-a-thon for the pediatrics and for the children, when you and I started in media, there used to be television telethons, and they were, I remember the Jerry Lewis one that was always Labor Day weekend, and a group of television people and radio people were always involved in that. Those seem to have diminished, and these radio and online phone-a-thons and the GoFundMes have kind of taken their place to some degree. How much money has been raised, let's say last year during this Children's Miracle Network phone-a-thon that actually came to Bay State? Do you have any idea?
Well, the money that we raise stays local. So the local money comes to support our pediatric hospital.
Okay.
So since 2002, we've raised $4.6 million. And the way people give has changed and adapted. It's very expensive to do a telethon. It requires a wonderful commitment from our radio partners to do a radioathon and use that airtime. But it's a wonderful vehicle that you can't really replace the value of it because it allows you exposure to the public who then can be aware and give. I'm a great believer that if you tell people the facts, you help them understand the problem. People in our community are very generous, and they rise to support that. And yes, they don't get out their checkbook like I did as a young person. My kids use Venmo and all the other, wonderful electronic tools to give. But the idea is still the same. It's still charity, and it's people opening their hearts and their wallets to help.
We were trained as kids, I guess from our parents and from our communities, that no matter what we did in our work or in our daily lives, that we were supposed to give something back to the community. It was just built into the frame that we grew up with. Are young people today similarly involved, Kathy, or is it more of an education process?
I am the mother of three 20-somethings, and I think that we've raised a wonderful, committed generation. I just think that people don't understand always that they do things differently. Let's face it, the world has changed since we were young, and there are even more pressures, I think, on people's time. I don't think that means that the next generation is any less involved. I just think they find different ways to do it. They ask a lot of questions. They're, I like to think, smarter than us even, and they, really do their homework, and they want to know things and be very involved in their own way. And so I do think that things like the GoFundMe movement, and we call it the DIY kind of events, and the Children's Miracle Network is very, if you go to our website, you'll see there's opportunities to do your own events and to raise money in your own way. I think that is the future for fundraising right now. And I think it enables people to use their creativity and do things with their own touch on it. So we have to adapt to that.
We're talking with Kathy Tobin at Bay State Health Foundation about how Bay State raises money for some of the programs that it needs as a nonprofit organization. We're going to take a short break here on the Westfield News Show for some underwriting announcements. And for those of you that are kind of stirring, it's 6:18 a.m. and it is approximately 34 degrees out there today. It's going to be a high of 59. One more nice day before a weather change comes in. So now's the time to pour your coffee, and we'll be right back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. Visit on the web at baystatedental.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Commercial Distributing Company of Westfield. Now in its third generation of family ownership, Commercial is one of the premier beverage distributors of Western Massachusetts. The Plasek family and the staff of Commercial Distributing wishes you good times throughout the year and urges you to drink responsibly. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com. With the Xfinity Double Play and Xfinity Triple Play, you can choose to bundle Comcast services for a great value. Experience Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Explore all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area on the web at xfinity.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Wally Computer Associates, one of the largest technology providers in North America. Headquartered in Southwick, Wally provides all of the products and services that you'd expect from a world-class technology partner to schools, colleges, businesses, as well as state and local governments and agencies. Wally Computer Associates, meeting all of your technology needs. On the web at WCA.com. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Westfield News Show here on 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach, standing in for Patrick Barry this month. And with me in the studio, but on the phone, is Kathy Tobin from the Bay State Health Foundation. Kathy, did you get a second cup of coffee there?
You know me too well. Of course I did.
I brought a giant size. I actually picked up my coffee this morning on Columbus Avenue at the only Starbucks open at before 5 o'clock in the morning.
Of course you knew where it was. So.
I do, and my car goes there on radar. I mean, you know, it's an automatic get off 91 at the right place, and then I can make it from Starbucks to Westfield without any problems.
It's a professional hazard, I'm afraid.
Talk about the phonathon next week that WMAS is being a very generous part of. Are there going to be any special surprises, special guests? Are there performances or more descriptions of some of the people and some of the services?
Well, you know, last year we changed things up just a little bit. Of course, it was my first year really getting my arms around this particular event with our wonderful team at Bay State Health Foundation. And we had the opportunity, it was a necessity because of the flu epidemic that was going around, not unlike this year, though this year is a little worse. For years, the radioathon took place in part on the children's play deck and the other part in a back room where we answered the phones. It was a wonderful thing to be on the play deck, which is a beautiful space that donors helped create for our children. But the reality was that it was too high risk with the flu going around to expose our kids to all these outsiders. So last year we moved the party, and we had so much fun. We're going to do it again this year into Pulaski Living Room. So the Pulaski Living Room is right off the main daily entrance of Bay State Medical Center. Most people have been by it one way or another. And so people come in, and we have many, many people from the community who join us, all of our wonderful sponsors, and then many volunteers. And they come in, and it's like a party. So we have patients, their families, community volunteers, our medical team and staff. Everybody comes together in that space, and the energy is electric. And surprises. There's always surprises when kids are involved, right, Mark?
Of course. That's a given.
Some of our youngest children come in, and they're so adorable, but, out of the mouths of babes. And, they're so familiar. It's a very interesting dynamic between them and their caregivers. They feel like they're very much at home because, unfortunately, many of them do spend quite a bit of time with us, and they come back often. But they do feel at home. They know the providers on a first-name basis. And so we try to make it fun and festive, and the focus is a very positive one. Of course, there are very sad stories that we deal with every day, but the idea is to try to take some of the pain away and focus on the positive and getting well, or giving children the best quality of life we can. And so we like to think it's a really special couple of days, and we invite people to participate by tuning in, by celebrating with us. If you are in the area, please come by and say hello.
How many volunteers are involved in this particular event? Do you have any idea?
Oh, there are several hundred. First of all, we staff the phones from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We do shifts so that they can You never have to wait. We try to take your calls efficiently, and many of them also call out to their friends and family members and ask them to donate. We have something called the Miracle Makers Club, which are devoted supporters who make a $20 a month pledge, and they're considered to be in our Miracle Maker Club. That's the money that helps sustain us, that we can plan on all year long. There's a steady stream to fund the important work we do. And then there's everybody. Food services supports us. Restaurants come in with food. We have, just every walk of life that supports us in any way, including our medical team, many of whom come in off hours. They'll work extra hours just to be around and to help us with this.
If somebody did want to become a volunteer and come down and answer phones either for this event or work with one of the other events, how do they connect with Bay State?
Well, it's interesting. Unfortunately, this year our phone banks are full. We don't leave anything to the last minute because we can't. It's too important. So we have filled all our phone slots for this year, but we always have volunteer opportunities available through the foundation. We do lots and lots of events, and we have a very small team. So it's really important that we rely on our communities that we work in to help us. So if people want to reach out to me or anyone on the team at the foundation, we're happy to get you connected to something that touches your heart and resonates with you.
Let's talk about that team. How many people work with you to plan these events and raise money for Bay State?
Well, my personal team, the events team, and I'm in charge of the annual giving and events. And there's just 5 of us, but we do almost 13 signature events a year. A couple of those are sort of combo events with some community members. But that is a very full calendar. As you can imagine, as the health system grew and we had new affiliations, we made a commitment to the communities that we serve that we would keep their identity as best we could and embrace things that were important to them. So we have events like the Bay State Noble Ball that, have, 53-year tradition under their belt. So we continue to build on those events. And so, as you can imagine, sometimes we're working on multiple events at the same time. There have been weekends when we had Rays of Hope the morning after doing the Bay State Noble Ball. And so it's quite a full agenda, and there's something for everyone. If you're a runner, we have running events. If you're somebody like me who prefers a night out with friends and colleagues, we offer those kinds of opportunities too.
You've mentioned the Bay State Noble Ball a couple of times, and that every time I'm out in Westfield, either stopping at the Westfield News to turn in a theater report or meeting with people in town, it's one of the signature events of Westfield, even though it takes place in Springfield. What's going on for that this year? Do you know the dates and what's being planned at this point?
We sure do. Your timing is wonderful. You'll be the first to know this.
I was going to say, can you reveal the theme?
Today we're meeting with our printer because we're getting our save the date out. I know people's calendars fill up very quickly, but this is an event not to be missed. This year it will be on November 4th. We're trying to keep that consistent, so it's the first Saturday in November, so people can plan. And this year we have a wonderful, exciting approach where it's going to be called It's Magic. And we are going to tip our hats to Harry Houdini and the Victorian era in which his kind of magical touch to things existed. And so I think it's going to be a very special evening for our folks in Westfield. After all these years, it's hard to keep the surprises coming, but we tried very hard. And it's really a wonderfully fun night that the community is so generous in supporting. I just can't say enough about the wonderful community that comes and rallies around this event each year to make it something special, not just for an evening, but all year long with what they fund through that event.
Well, before you came to Bay State, you worked with the Friends of the Homeless, and when you were in news, there were all kinds of events that you were involved in and sponsoring. Wouldn't you say that the people around you are so generous, not only with writing checks and attending these events, but they provide materials and supplies and a lot of enthusiasm? There's something about people in the Valley and their enthusiasm for supporting local things. It's just amazing.
I think it's one of the reasons that my husband and I chose to stay in this community and raise our family here. there really is a secret something. And it's a community that supports each other and rallies around each other. And it really does make it a great place to work and play and live. And over again, I see that. Because of my role at Bay State, I go into all of our communities, whether it's in Franklin County or out in Palmer and Ware with Wing and Mary Lane and Westfield with Noble. I make new friends. I feel like in many ways I'm still telling the same stories I told on the news broadcast, but I'm just getting to know the people a little more intimately as I go out and work with people in the community on what really are grassroots events, because, you know, people decide what it is our focus will be and what their needs are, and then we just try to support that. And, you know, I'm always amazed at how people step up to help.
I am too. And the other thing that I find interesting, you came from media and news. I came from media and news. There's a whole group of our colleagues, and some of us all started in Springfield and around the very same time, and so many of us are involved in our professional lives now raising money for nonprofits, and that's our prime work. You got involved in, you left the news business to become part of a series of nonprofits. We had a news person from Holyoke that we worked with who went to San Francisco and is now involved in nonprofits and fundraising. I think as media people, we saw first line what the needs of the community really were. Do you find it great that you have this opportunity now to actually get out in the community and raise the money for projects that you had reported on when you started out as a reporter?
You know, if you had told me I would be in fundraising, I would have rolled my eyes at you. The reality is that I started to do this, not because anyone likes raising money, but because it is really the need that drew me and the desire to give back to the community that was so good to me. I want to improve the quality of life for our community, wherever that need is, and this has been the most rewarding work. I had 30 wonderful years in broadcasting. I loved every minute of it till the day that I left. But I really found a new chapter that's very exciting to me because I see directly how we impact people and their lives. And there is no better job than that. There is no better front seat than to see how we can really put a fingerprint on our world. And so I feel really, really blessed to have this opportunity. And I love working with people. And so this really checks off all the boxes for me, and I hope will be my legacy.
It's a great second act for all of us. I mean, I find so much personal satisfaction when I'm doing a community service project. I mean, it just enhances the quality of my life, and it gives me a chance to make the town I live in or the area that I work in a better place. So I feel blessed as well. Switching back here, just gears back to the phone-a-thon next week. Is there a goal that you have set in terms of what you'd like to raise over the 2 days?
More every year.
Okay, so what number do we have to beat to be more this year?
Well, you know, it's we're always trying to raise the thermometer. I will just tell you, just so people can get, I know people like a little competition, but one of our great partners in the Radiothon is the University of Massachusetts. And the university takes part in a national program that we have called the Dance-a-thon. And last year, those students had a goal for themselves of raising $100,000. And it was a real stretch, and we thought, oh boy, you know, that's a wonderful, lofty goal, but we were nervous about them getting there. And they surpassed their goal. And this year, they said they're going to raise $200,000. And I will tell you that already they are so active and doing so much that they're pacing ahead of last year. So I think they're on their way to great things. So, you know, we like everybody to give to the full extent that they can and to help us. And, you know, so we're just really encouraging people to just try to stretch and do a little bit more if you can than last year, or become a miracle maker and provide us that year-round support. All of that adds together to mean success for our kids.
I know that you're looking for cash donations because all nonprofits do, but does Bay State have a program, for example, if somebody wanted to include Bay State Foundation's programs in their will or their legacy, are there any kind of planned giving programs that you have in place?
Absolutely. We have a fabulous team of philanthropy officers who are very well versed in planned giving and helping people, ensure that their legacy is a meaningful one. We're finding in the fundraising world that there's growing interest in that, and there's more and more opportunities to do that in a very easy way. You and I are at the point in our lives when, my children are raised and they're educated, and we start to think about the long term. And, as you're going through those processes of making your plans, we do ask people to consider making a meaningful gift to a health system. And, even people who, are very frugal and who have not had, extravagant lives can do big things through a legacy gift. And so we can walk people through the process and help give them options and connect them to all the right folks to make that happen.
And also it can provide a tax benefit to somebody while they're still alive. So it's the kind of gift that benefits yourself as well as benefiting the nonprofit that you choose to donate to.
That's right. There's lots of different options that can, provide income to you and security and still take care of your family as well. So, those are long-term conversations that develop with our relationships, and that's how I think of my donors. We get to know you, and we enjoy that process, and we want to make sure that your legacy is one that is meaningful to you. So maybe it's that you were touched by a particular part of our healthcare system, and that's where you'd like to leave your legacy, leave your mark, if you will. And so we try to adjust to what the donors' wants and needs are.
And I have one last question, because I know that you need to get ready for a full day of fundraising at Bay State. If there's somebody who's listening who's an entrepreneur or a small business or a sole proprietor, are there business ways that these groups can come together and sponsor one of these events?
Oh, absolutely. Sponsorships are really the key in event fundraising. Events have a lot of moving pieces and parts, and even though individual donations move the needle, it's really our sponsors who are the backbone of those fundraising efforts. So, again, we try to make it a win-win situation for everyone. We offer something many people can't offer, and that's exposure in front of 12,000 employees. In the case of something like Rays of Hope, 20,000 to 25,000 participants each year. So we help companies get their good name and their community commitment in front of all those folks. And again, we have packages that range from a $1,000 commitment up to $30,000 or more, depending on the kind of involvement they are seeking out with us. But we love to have sponsors, and we like to help people grow along with us.
Give us a phone number people can call if they want to get involved with Bay State.
I would just encourage them to call the foundation, or certainly next week we really want you to be able to call into our telethon, and that number is 794-1111. Don't forget, the Radiothon is really important to us, March 6th and 7th. It helps the kids, help make miracles happen.
Kathy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate you getting up at dawn. It was difficult for me to get up, so I can only imagine how difficult it is for everyone else.
Oh, radio's easy. You don't even have to worry about a bad hair day.
I do, because this is streaming on Comcast in Westfield. But have a great phone-a-thon. I hope people are supportive of Bay State Health and its many programs and services. And I hope you come back and chat again at some point down the road.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me, and we wish Patrick Berry all the best, and you will do a wonderful job, we know, for the community, because we'll be listening.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. We're going to take a couple of underwriting messages. We'll be back with more of the Westfield News Show this morning. Our next guest will be Mark Gionfriddo from the Big Broadcaster. We're going to talk a little bit about radio, so don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Support for community programming on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. Visit bettsplumbing.com or 14 Coleman Avenue, Westfield. Public welcome.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore at Westfield State University, right here in the Ely Campus Center. Whether you're a student, faculty member, or friend of the university, it's the place to shop. Everything from Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise to all of your academic needs. Offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Visit the bookstore on campus or online at www.westfieldstate.bncollege.com. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. That's what you'll find on Ken's Den, Tuesdays from 8 till 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Westfield News Show. I'm Mark Auerbach, standing in for Patrick Berry this month here on 89.5 FM WSKB. Thursday morning, and the high temperature for today is going to hit maybe 59 degrees. Tomorrow, watch out because a nor'easter's coming through. And as they say in New England weather, just watch everything because it's going to radically change. So keep your eyes to the skies today. Our next guest is Mark Gionfriddo, who some of you that are in theater may know as one of the music directors at the Berkshire Theater Group up in Stockbridge and Pittsfield. And others of you may know because he's the creator and the music director for the big broadcast, which happens this weekend on Saturday at 2 and 7:30 at Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm caffeinated. How are you?
Oh, I've got mine right in front of me as well.
Oh, that's good. I know that you've been on a couple of other programs here, and Brian Lapis got a chance to chat with me the other day about the big broadcast. So I would assume that some of our WSKB listeners know about the show. What's new this year that should draw people to Chapin Auditorium Saturday?
Well, what's pretty cool is we have basically we're doing some B-sides of things that people may not have heard before. I looked at the playlist of music that we're doing, and we're doing some interesting tunes that people may not have heard of. And then, of course, we're also recognizing we're coming to the tail end of Ella Fitzgerald's centennial year, so we're doing several tunes that were associated with Ella Fitzgerald to recognize that. And so that should be lots of fun.
And it's for the first time it's on a Saturday, right?
Yes, we're very fortunate. For 12 years now, we've been on Sunday, and the college was able to maneuver us over one day on Saturday. So where the evening show on Sunday evening was maybe perhaps difficult for some people who had to work the next day, now it's no problem. Now hopefully everybody can come, whether you don't want to go out late, you can come in the afternoon, or you can come out and maybe have some dinner and then come see the show.
And it's at Chapin Auditorium. Tickets are available in advance at the Fine Arts Center at UMass and at the Odyssey Bookshop. And I have heard that we will have tickets for both performances available at the door. But in some cases, they're cheaper when you buy them in advance. And especially if you want to sit down front and center in the producer's circle section, that's something you definitely buy in advance. How many students are involved in the show?
Well, we have about 35 students in the show. We have about 35 students in the jazz ensembles, which consists of the big band, which is, just as it sounds, it's It's a typical size big band from the that period, 1940s. I also have my first chair players form a combo for some of the more challenging types of music that we play, such as like Dixieland, and then I have a vocal jazz choir that's 25 people, and they are basically portray the singers that sing at this fictitious radio station called WJAZ, of which I am the musical director. My name is Matt Morgan, and then of course, as you mentioned, Brian Lapis plays Fred Kelly, and Brian and I are kind of like the glue that holds the show together. He does all of the intros and outros, and of course, the Starlight Sweethearts all know him. That's the name of the choir of the singers that perform. And we kind of have like a Johnny and an Ed McMahon kind of an attitude, the two of us together. We've clearly been working together for a long period of time on this particular show, and there's an ease and a familiarity that we have working, and I think the audience immediately sees that, and I think it's part of the fun, definitely.
A lot of people in the area know about the big broadcast and other offerings that we get here, and many people assume that the artistic talent that comes to do shows in and around Western Massachusetts comes from somewhere else. They're from New York, they're from Boston, they're from LA. You're a local guy. You were born and raised here, and you work here. Are you unique, or are there many other people involved that are locally born and raised that have come back to do their art and creative work here?
Yeah, I think there's definitely several. I mean, I was very fortunate. I remember reading in the Springfield papers quite often. I'd see something about the Berkshire Theater Festival, and I was always interested in musical theater. And I saw that they had a lot of musicals that were going on there from time to time. And I remember my mom saying, when she would read the reviews and stuff like that, she'd say, "Gee, maybe you could work there someday." And I'd be thinking like, "Wow, I really would love to." But I like you, I would be thinking like, well, maybe just New York people do that sort of thing and everything. And when I got the call, and it was the first call that I got. Was actually to be an accompanist for a show that they were doing, this must have been at least 7 or 8 years ago, called Babes in Arms, and the musical director had to go away for about a weekend, and so I came in and I basically listened to a couple of shows, watched what was going on, and then I played a couple of the shows, and then I did the weekend that they needed me to cover. And that sort of like I said, just kind of got my foot in the door. And from then on, they started asking me to do more and more. And then I started musical directing. So it was a lot of fun. But it's true. I think, like, for instance, my friend David Kidwell, who's from Holyoke, he is doing a lot of stuff down at the Goodspeed down in Connecticut. So I think there are a number of us around here in the area. Unfortunately, I don't get out to see as many shows as I'd like to because I'm so busy, doing my own projects and stuff like that and creating things that it's difficult to get out and see what other people are doing. But I do, read the papers and try to keep up on stuff. So yes, I do believe there are. It is possible that there are people around here that are working, and it's not just all people from, say, the big cities.
You've trained a lot of students at Mount Holyoke in the form of jazz and performance. Have any of them gone on to become name singers or musicians that you're aware of?
Well, not that I'm aware of. I mean, several of them. Oh, there's a woman down in the Washington and the Baltimore area. Her name is Caitlin Mercer, and she actually started with me as a bass player and a singer. She was one of the charter members of the jazz ensemble, and she has a pretty good following down there. I wouldn't say it's a national following, but she's definitely got a very excellent regional following down there. And I believe the group that she formed is called Blue Hippopotamus, and she does kind of like a smoky jazz, kind of a crossover into the indie rock kind of a thing. And she's a very, very talented person, very talented singer and player, and like I said, one of the founding members of the jazz ensembles. But we tend to get people in our ensembles that are kind of trying out jazz. We have a few people that have sung, and obviously they've been in their high school musicals, and they've done a limited amount of pop music and maybe some jazz too. But many of the people are trying out for the first time, and they are, of course, really, really surprised. And they surprise me, too, because there's a lot of rock talent out there. It's just a matter of just kind of working with them and molding them into a good entertainer, so to speak. So, and of course, this show kind of lends for that sort of thing. It's not just putting on a concert. It's really all of the other things. It's the sensibilities of the 1940s. It's getting into that mindset. It's a historical kind of an artifact of what was going on in that time period. And because of that, the singers need to kind of approach their music from that point of view, and also the stylized way of singing those songs and performing them.
You work with a lot of students at Mount Holyoke where you're an instructor, but when you're at the Berkshire Theater Group, you work with apprentices and young up-and-coming actors and singers, dancers, and technicians, a lot of whom come from the area colleges and universities. I would assume that we're very lucky in the fact that our colleges and universities here in Western New England, particularly up and down the valley, provide strong programs in theater, music, dance, and technical art. Would you agree with that? And do you think that somebody who's interested in getting into theater could easily get their start here in Western Mass?
I think so. I think at least, if anything, I think it's a good place to at least do a few years for sure. But yes, definitely. I mean, Mount Holyoke has a strong theater department. I know Smith does as well. And yes, it is possible, definitely. And of course, it's always good to go on, if you're interested in that sort of thing, to graduate work, and so you can go to some of the other maybe more recognizable theater programs around the country. You could do your grad work there. But definitely starting out here is a possibility, that's for sure. Now,
you had said, or I overheard you saying that you've been doing some accompanying for the Young at Heart Chorus. So on one hand, the jazz ensembles is working with younger singers, and the Young at Heart Chorus is working with older singers. What's that like? I mean, that's got to be a very unique experience. They've been in it. There's been a documentary about them. They travel and sing all over the place, and it's people who have been around.
Yes, definitely a very unique and really enjoyable experience to work with the Young at Heart. I was very fortunate to get another phone call from them. I actually worked for the Young at Heart way back when. I want to say it was probably 1992 to about 1997. I accompanied for them. Their first pianist, who was also a member of the chorus, was Judith Sharp. She was a longtime Northampton a person who lived in Northampton. And when the chorus started doing some music that was kind of out of her element, I mean, she was used to playing the turn of the century kind of things, like After the Ball Is Over and all that sort of thing. But when Bob Stillman, the director, was kind of moving them into like, hey, let's do some Manfred Mann, and hey, let's do some really things that are kind of left of center, they brought me in to play some of that stuff. And of course, it's as anybody who knows the Young at Heart, it's a real kick to see them doing, anything that's contemporary like that. But it's really cool because they approach that music just as they would approach a Tin Pan Alley song. They're very, very, they want to make sure that they get the right, it's not parody at all is what I'm trying to say. It's very, very well done, well thought out. And it's a real pleasure to work with them. And I'm looking forward to, I think they have a concert that's coming up in April at the Academy of Music that I'm going to be playing with. And then I'm also going to be going on a 2-week tour with them to the Netherlands, and I think we're going to Belgium too in late May. So that's going to be lots of fun, and it's like I said, it's kind of full circle for me because I worked with them way back before they got famous, and then I left actually because of the jazz ensembles. They were being formed, and I kind of got busy over here at Mount Holyoke, so I had to leave them. And so it's full circle. I've come back to be with them for at least a short period of time.
In your career, you've worked with some heavy hitters. I know that I'm not sure whether it was in New York or cruise ships or where it was, but you worked with people like Mitzi Gaynor and Al Martino and some of these other people. How did that come about?
Well, you get the call. It's just kind of it's hard to say, but I guess I've been working in this area now for a while. That people recognize my name, and if they need somebody to either accompany or play for somebody, they basically look me up and give me a call. And in Mitzi Gaynor's case, she had come. I don't remember the year this was. This is a little while back, but she came to Springfield, and she was I believe it might have been Turner Network Classics or something like that. They brought her in to do some tunes, and it was like a reception. And so I played for her, and Al Martino came to Holyoke. He did a week at the famed Holyoke Country Club. And there was a number of us, some of my colleagues and friends in the music business, also in the education field, that were also on that gig. And so we accompanied him and things like that. So you never know. I mean, that's what's the cool part about music. I guess they always say you never know where your next gig is coming from. Of course, I'm really fortunate to be based at Mount Holyoke, so that's my long-time gig. But like I said, it's always fun to do these side projects like The Young at Heart and get the calls to accompany the occasional celebrity.
We're talking with Mark Gionfriddo, who's the creator and the music director of The Big Broadcast, which will be 2 performances on Saturday at 2 and 7:30 at Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley. We're going to take a top-of-the-hour break for some underwriting announcements, and we will be back with Mark Gionfriddo in the 7 o'clock hour. This is the Westfield News Show, and if you're interested in today's headlines, check out the Westfield News Group's website at thewestfieldnews.com. There is a city council meeting taking place today. There's updates on school committee meetings. There's sports. There's arts and a lot more. This is 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach. Right back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. Visit on the web at baystatedental.com. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Westfield News Show on 89.5 FM WSKB, coming to you today from the studio at Westfield State University. And Pete Coles is my engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, standing in for Patrick Berry, who will be back hopefully soon. And our guest is Mark Gionfriddo, who's the creator and the conductor and the director of the big broadcast at Mount Holyoke. He plays the character of Matt Morgan. Brian Lapis, who you know is a weather person at Channel 22.
No, I know him as a ham.
He's a ham. He stars as Fred Kelly. And before we talk again with Mark, since we mentioned weather, Pete, what's the weather for today?
Well, today is going to be great, so enjoy it. It's going to get up to around 59 degrees, but later tonight, around 9, 10 o'clock, it's going to start raining. And it's not going to stop raining till sometime midday Saturday. So, I mean, we're going to get rain, you're going to see snow, might get some accumulations in the valley. Listening to the morning forecasters, I was listening to Nick on the way in, and the Berkshire Hills are going to get several inches of snow, and so are the Worcester Hills. So this is an elevation storm, so the higher up you are in an elevation, the more snow you're going to get. Down the valley, a lot of rain, though.
But
almost
I think Mark Gionfriddo would agree with me, and so would Brian Lapis. When a meteorologist leaves a television station to go on stage and play an MC in a 1942 radio broadcast, it never snows on
It's
Brian
not going
Lapis.
to on. No, it's not going to on Saturday. It's going to get nice weather.
So, Mark, I have a question for you. This is the 13th edition of the big broadcast. You've created it and directed it every year. Does it get more difficult year after year, or is it easier?
Well, I think I would say that it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think the difficult part is to try to find, because I love, the one thing about this show is that I like the fact that I try to make it as, new as possible. I mean, when you obviously it's all old music, but we do lots of different things. And but now that we've been doing 13 years, I like to bring back a few things that are my favorites, maybe some favorite arrangements and things like that. So, but it is difficult every year to. Well, first of all, the music that we play isn't like something that you could go over to the local music store and go purchase. It is things that are unusual, and so I have to search far and wide for these specialty arrangements that are authentic to the 1940s, 30s, and the 40s. And then what I don't find, I actually have to transcribe. So I take recordings and I listen to them and very intently, just like a typical arranger might do, and break them down. You take them apart like a jigsaw puzzle, put them back together again, and that is lots of fun for me. I mean, that's just as fun as teaching the students. But as I alluded to earlier, I decided this year that it would be kind of fun to find some really wonderful songs that were not necessarily hits, but were just as good as the ones that were on the flip side of the record. Like, for instance, the Andrews Sisters song, one of the Andrews Sisters songs that we're doing this year is a song called Music Makers. Now, most people who know that genre would recognize Music Makers as a song by Harry James, and who was a famous trumpeter and just a great, again, had a great band. But I guess when Don Ray heard the song, he thought it was a really, really cool song and wrote lyrics to the song. And I guess they gave it to the Andrews Sisters, and the Andrews Sisters sped up the tempo just a little bit and kind of had a swing hit with it. It came out, this record that it came out, the A-side was Aurora, which was a big hit for the Andrews Sisters. Aurora, of course, followed I would say the smash hit that the Andrews Sisters are known for, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. And so they were kind of riding a huge popularity. They had just made an appearance in Buck Privates, which was an Abbott and Costello movie. And so they came out with this record, and it was a huge hit. And I think in this case, I think both the A side and the B side are great tunes, and but we're going to present the B side.
Where do you find these records today? I mean, I know a lot of stuff was recorded, but it's really hard to find an old record that you could still put on a turntable.
This is true, yeah. I mean, of course, we're lucky now that there's a lot of stuff on online. I also, because I'm kind of a student, I have been a student for many, many years of that time period. I'm a collector, and I've collected a lot of compact discs, and I have a lot of Andrews Sisters things, and so I do have my a personal collection that I can kind of go through and cull through. I also have there's a great book on the Andrews Sisters, and I can't remember the fellow's name. I think his last name is Nimmo, Nimmo. But it's basically the only biography I think two of the sisters, Maxine and Patty, both wrote autobiographies. But this is the only biography that I have known of that's the most extensive one. And it's a wonderful read because it has lots of pictures in it as well as great stories about all of the stuff that was going on for the Andrews Sisters at that time. And there's also an extensive discography in the back, and that is one of my kind of go-to sources to find interesting possible novelty tunes that we can do.
I knew nothing about the Andrews Sisters growing up, although they were famous, but it just wasn't in my listening realm until Bette Midler came out with her recording of Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. And then I was very lucky. I was in college, and the Andrews Sisters, well, two of the three of them, I don't remember which one passed away first, but the remaining...
Laverne, I believe.
The remaining two starred on Broadway in a musical called Over Here, which was the story of a girls' group of two sisters that were looking for a third singer, and they were on a troop train entertaining the troops going from the West Coast to New York. And it featured in the chorus people like Mary Lou Henner, John Travolta, Anne Reinking, and Treat Williams. In very small parts, it was all their Broadway debuts. And the Andrews Sisters had their songs, and they picked up a third singing sister in the course of the musical. And then the musical is rather short, maybe an hour and a half. And then after the curtain call, with the third person, they sang a medley of Andrews Sisters songs. I think the Andrews Sisters will probably be remembered forever because those tight harmonies and the enthusiasm and the upbeat tempos of their songs are just incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And working here at Mount Holyoke College and doing these type of songs are a real kick for the students because they're not used to singing that sort of style. I mean, it's really interesting because, in one way, it is actually very, very reminiscent of the way that I'm getting kind of musically geeky here, but the way that the chord is stacked, the way that they sing. Laverne was always on the fifth of the chord, and Patty, we would say, would be kind of on the tonic. She would always have the melody. And Maxine would be harmonizing a third above usually what Patty was doing, although not always, because Patty, because of the nature of course, melodies kind of go up and down, Maxine was always kind of subservient to whatever Patty was doing. And so Maxine would constantly, sometimes she'd be riding above what Patty was singing, and then every once in a while she'd have to zip down to below Patty to grab another harmony because Patty was too high, And so it's really interesting, and I was just speaking with one of my students about this whole thing, Hannah Danziger, who's playing basically the Maxine role in the sister trio that we have in our show. She was remarking about how much difficult Maxine's part was because she has to do a lot of tritones, which are really, it's like hee-haw, hee-haw. It's known as the donkey interval. She has to do a lot of that stuff because she just has to kind of go with the flow with whatever Patty is with the Patty character is doing. So we were remarking about that, about she kind of has the lion's share of the work, whereas Patty has the melody and it's kind of, the easiest thing to sing. And of course, the Laverne character has the bass line. So the Laverne character is kind of bopping along at the bottom of the stack there. So it's really interesting, but it's very cool music. It's so much fun to kind of dissect. And having done it now for 13 years and dissecting a lot of these arrangements, it's really, really given me an appreciation for what Vic Schoen, who's the guy who did all of their arranging, the kind of stuff that he would write. And I mean, it was just real fun, popular, swingy stuff. And obviously it struck a chord in a lot of people.
Now, you and I are children of the television era, but because I think the golden age of radio ended probably 10 years before we made our personal appearances on the planet. What intrigued you first? I mean, when did you get into the idea of the music of the golden age of radio?
It's hard to say. I think I do remember the same kind of experience hearing Bette Midler reinterpret Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, and I remember thinking, wow, that's really different, because obviously, when was that? It must have been in the 70s or something like that,
Yeah, it
right?
was in the 70s. It was in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, music was going through a real change at that time. I mean, it was kind of like post-Beatles and the Vietnam War and all that stuff was going on, and so the music was really kind of getting reactionary, and so this was kind of like a breath of fresh air, and I heard that, and I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. And I think at that point, I started listening to a little bit of swing, and especially Glenn Miller, and it's kind of interesting because it turned out that Glenn Miller and the Andrews Sisters paths did cross early in the Andrews Sisters' career. They did a series of broadcasts that are known as the Chesterfield broadcasts. I think it might have been for maybe 6 months or something like that. It was really cool because the Andrews Sisters, who basically would work with whoever would accompany them, because they were up and coming and they were kind of like going around in the vaudeville circuit, and so they had, a real kind of interesting, accompaniment from night to night. All of a sudden, they had a real high-class band that was accompanying them, the Glenn Miller outfit. And so I can imagine that Vic Schoen was probably, reorchestrating some of their arrangements for a larger ensemble. And they were, I'm sure they were thrilled to work with Glenn Miller, who also, had a big hit with at the time that their paths crossed, already had a big hit with "In the Mood," one of the iconic instrumentals from that period. So yeah, I would say I think it was about that time when I heard the Bette Midler piece that I started investigating the swing era and started listening to things like bands like Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman, of course, who was hugely popular in the middle to late 30s into the 40s, and Artie Shaw as well was a huge dance band leader. So yeah.
I'm just fascinated by the music, and I just sort of wish that YouTube had come about when we were kids, because the ability now to go and look up the Andrews Sisters on your computer and get a whole variation of songs that they did and videos and movies and all that right at your fingertips is an amazing resource that we just never had. But I remember going from listening to the Andrews Sisters to getting into the tight harmonies of Manhattan Transfer, which came along not that much after. And today,